last one, but it's not a big question, okay? It's just I want to know for the verse that talks about Isaiah's age, or Isaiah, or how do you pronounce?
Yeah. Well, there are manuscripts in which there is a transcriptional error because if you understand Hebrew, they didn't have numbers. Numbers were written by letters. So a letter like Aleph would be 1. So we have some manuscripts in which you have a variant reading. It says 22. Others will say 42. So it agrees. In the Hebrew manuscripts, you have what we call copyist mistakes. That's not just true of the Bible. That's true of every book. You didn't even know that about the Quran. I hope I don't need to prove that. So you can have a copyist who can misread a letter that he's copying. And by misreading it, he then changes the actual number. But we have other copies that show that the number is intact. So some copies will have 22, others have 42. This is simply a misreading of a copyist because no one believes, no Muslim believes, the copies are perfectly copied. That does not exist. Doesn't exist for the Bible, doesn't exist for any works of antiquity, doesn't exist for any of the Quranic manuscripts. The extant Quranic manuscripts, they all have variations because of copyists making mistakes or coming over, putting a paste over something and writing over it to change it.
Okay, yeah, because your friend got logic. He actually said that it was because Isaiah was kidnapped or something like that.
He's probably giving you that it's referring to the dynastic that's counting from the dynastic period. But the simple answer is that in Hebrew, numbers are represented by letters. So Aleph is 1. So when they want to write out the age, they use letters. And it's very easy for a copyist to misread a letter and accidentally write in his copy the wrong letter, changing the number. That's why 42 and 22, but there are manuscripts that read the same. So some will say 42, others will say 22. In other words, when you examine the copies, you can understand this is a copyist error. And that's just a fact. It's true for all books prior to the printing press. Even today, when you write with a computer, you write with a computer with spell checker. How many mistakes do you make when you're writing?
A lot.
Why? Don't you have technology to correct it?
Yeah.
So you expect people living in a time, they don't have internet, they don't have Microsoft Word, they don't have PDF, they don't have spell checker. They have to write things with hand, with an ink. They don't have electricity. And sometimes the copies of the books they have are defective. So they may see a smear, because sometimes there'll be a smear, a nudge. And you expect them to write flawlessly and perfectly? That's not how the Bible's preserved. That's not how any book is preserved. The way the Bible's preserved is, we have over 25,000 copies of the Bible in different languages. This is a fact. I'm not lying. You can search it out. Even Bart Ehrman will tell you. We have 5,300 plus copies of the books in the New Testament in Greek. We have almost 10,000 copies of the biblical books in Latin. And then we have thousands of copies in other languages, Syriac, Aramaic, Sahidic, Coptic, all preserved all over the world, which means it would be humanly impossible for any one individual or group to find all the copies, gather them, and then burn them or destroy them, and then make their own copy that they think is authoritative. And because of that, you may have this copy that has this reading because either the copyist made a mistake or thought that his copy is defective and he changed it, but you have the other thousands of copies that all read the same, by which we can know, oh, this copy is defective.
Okay, it makes more sense now.
But that's true of every, and by the way, forget me as a Christian. Go and do a search. The Arabic Qurans that are preserved, that are dated to the 8th century, they all have variant readings that don't agree, because that's how human copyists copy. They can't do it perfectly. So if that's an argument against the Bible, then all the books before the printing press, whether the Quran, the Bible, the Vedas, the Buddhist scriptures, they all have to go out the window and in the trash, because none of them have come down to us without variant readings.
Okay.
That's just a fact, brother. If that's the reason to reject the Bible, then that's the reason to reject all works of antiquity. Even Homer's Iliad or Odyssey or Caesar's Gallic Wars, they all have to be thrown out, because all of them have variant readings. But no serious scholar says, oh, the variant readings mean we don't have the original preserved and can identify the original. That doesn't work, man. That's only in Islamic fantasy land.
Yeah.
In the readings of Ibn Abbas, Abdullah bin Masud, Ubay bin Ka'b, you will find their versions of specific verses in contradiction and conflict with the Quran you read today, standardized by Uthman ibn Affan. And these readings do change the meaning of the Quran. Let me give you one example. This is from part 2. What was the original reading of chapter 36, verse 38 of the Quran? In the Quran that you read today, 36, 38, the Uthmanic Quran, this is what you'll find. And the sun runs on its fixed course for a term appointed. Now watch the variant reading. Ibn Masud and Ibn Abbas recited this verse as, now notice how they recited it. And the sun runs with no fixed course for a term. Their Quran read, the sun runs with no fixed course for a term. But the Quran you have today says, the sun runs with a fixed course for a term. So which is it? Does the sun run on a fixed course, or the sun has no fixed course? If the sun runs on a fixed course, that contradicts the reading of Abdullah ibn Masud ibn Abbas that says the sun has no fixed course that it runs on. And whose Qurans are we to trust and follow according to Muhammad? Muhammad said, learn the Quran from Abdullah ibn Masud, not from Uthman or Zayd. And Muhammad said, Allah gave Ibn Abbas the knowledge of the Quran. So Abdullah ibn Masud, Ibn Abbas agree over against Uthman. That means the Quran they read today is not original. It's not authentic, because the true Quran taught by Abdullah ibn Masud and understood by Ibn Abbas read the verse as saying the sun has no fixed course. Another reading that makes a difference because it affects the nature of Allah. Let me read to you chapter 37, verse 12 of the Quran. In fact, you were astonished by their denial while they ridicule you. Now, supposedly Allah speaking to Muhammad, saying, Muhammad, you're astonished by their denial while they ridicule you. The word astonished is ajibta. You were astonished. Ajib, ajibta. You. Who? You, Muhammad. But now I'm going to show you that the Qurans of Ibn Masud and others, notice again, it's not the Arabic versions of the Uthmanic Quran, which are still in circulation. This variant reading was found in the Qurans of Abdullah ibn Masud. Notice who? Abdullah ibn Masud and other companions of Muhammad. The Qurans that Uthman destroyed and burned. How did theirs read? Now let me show you how theirs read. Now, in today's Quran it says, you were astonished, Muhammad. Ajibta. In the Quran of Ibn Masud and others, it's Allah who was astonished. Here's how they read it. In fact, I was astonished by their denial while they ridicule you. I was astonished. Ajibtu. Ajibtu. I. Not you, Muhammad. I. Uh-oh. So who was astonished? Was it Allah or Muhammad? What did the Quran originally say? Allah was astonished or Muhammad was astonished? Well, Muhammad is not Allah and Allah is not Muhammad unless you believe Muhammad is the human manifestation, incarnation of Allah, so that Muhammad is Allah and Allah is Muhammad, because Allah is Muhammad's alter ego. Either it says, you are astonished by their ridicule and rejection of you, or I was astonished by their ridicule and rejection of you. Now let me read what Ibn Taymiyyah said about this. He uses this reading of Ibn Masud to prove that Allah can get amazed, get shocked, and get astonished concerning the affirmation of amazement and some other attributes, that Allah gets amazed. That is the statement, our Lord is amazed at the despair of his slaves and the closeness of his goodness. He is looking at you in severe despair, so he continues laughing, knowing that your relief is near. A Hassan hadith. So guys, please pay attention. Ibn Taymiyyah quotes this hadith, Hassan, good, it's not naive, where Muhammad says two things about Allah. Our Lord is amazed, astonished, shocked when his slaves despair, and Allah laughs. So Ibn Taymiyyah and the Salafis believe Allah laughs and gets amazed. These are his attributes. Allah actually laughs and actually gets amazed and shocked.